Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Small Talk. I'm Amy, this is my wife Maggie, and
Hello.
together we are ThinkerThemer, and this is our more relaxed series where we talk about lots of random topics really, and we should start maybe with just a bit of an update with what's been going on with us because, oh my goodness. Well, look, when this video launches, it will be your birthday.
It will be.
So happy birthday.
Yay.
In some kind of weird time
In
warp.
the sort of future.
Future.
But that'll be the present. We have our own like time travel thing going on here. This is amazing.
It is. So happy birthday, babe.
Thank
happy
you.
Happy birthday from the past.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
But this year, Maggie said that she wanted a more relaxed type birthday where I actually have to work because it's a Monday and Maggie's going to spend the day playing solo board games.
Yes.
So I'm very jealous. I wish I could take more time off. We've had so much time off recently.
We have had a lot of time off. So I think, and I kind of very sneakily said to work, I'm just going to take one extra day off. There's no meetings on that day, so it's my birthday.
I feel
one
like
day
working on your birthday is the worst. I think everyone should just have as standard their birthday off.
Ideally.
Just to enjoy.
I mean, it depends because some people actually enjoy having
love going.
The being in company of people around you that can say happy birthday or have a cake for you or something.
Have the team cake.
Yeah. I'm more of an introvert, so I quite like just retiring away to play a board game by myself. That's like the
Maggie's
ideal.
dream is like everyone leave me alone for my birthday, and that's the best present that you
could
ever receive.
Yes, it's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Well, so we're gonna have a pretty chill time, but it has been really busy because we were obviously away in the States for so long, and then we came back and we got married.
We did,
and we actually have a few more photos that we can probably share because we talked about it in last Small Talk, and we didn't have our photos back yet.
No, they hadn't really come back. We only had a couple that we'd taken from our phones.
Which we put it on Instagram, but we didn't really feature on the video. So right now I'll show you some photos. Some of my favorite ones are at the coffee shop when we had our first date.
Which wasn't a date because you
cute.
Very clearly said that you weren't looking for anything beyond friendship. So it was
our
first friendly coffee, as I was calling it back then. Yes.
And there's some other beautiful photos kind of around Melbourne City, which is a great city. We love Melbourne.
It's so beautiful. Yeah. Love everything about it.
And neither of us are from Melbourne, but it's where we have made our home and our life.
Yeah.
So it's pretty special to us.
Yeah.
So thank you to everyone who obviously wrote in and sent us some lovely messages about the wedding. And the other thing is a huge announcement this week was ThinkerThemer being featured on
Rahdo. We did our first run through, which was very exciting, very scary because again we're only used to reviewing, not actually playing, recording us playing live.
Yes, I have a whole new. I already respected people who did playthroughs, but after going through the process of learning how to talk about your turns out loud and then also like playing while teaching is very difficult because even when you have friends over, you do a bit of a teach first and then you play your own game. So you don't have to worry about talking through, maybe I could do this or that.
Yeah. In fact, it would be potentially very annoying if you were talking the whole time.
It would be really annoying.
I can't, which is, that's something that I probably find a little bit easier. Like I would happily just talk through the entire time, but then you would find it very distracting because it's like that auditory, pull from the focus of your own, listening to your own mind.
I mean, I'm very good at ignoring you, but
years of practice,
decade
of practice. Yeah.
But I do find it difficult when I'm trying to make a decision in the game. And so, we started with Radlands, which is a fairly simple 2-player game, not a huge rules overhead. So it's going to be interesting, I think, when we do a bigger game and have to be thinking about strategy at the same time as vocalizing that strategy and at the same time as kind of being wary of like your opponent. And it is really interesting actually because if you watch Rahdo's channel, you'll know that Rahdo plays with his wife, but his wife is not there. So the other character is always Jen. And so it's not really a 2-player game, and so it doesn't matter if he gives away his strategy. Whereas it was kind of interesting when we were thinking about how is this going to work with two people actually playing against each other, and being able to demonstrate the competitiveness of that, but also telling each other what we're going to be doing along the way. So
Yeah.
that's kind of interesting, but it worked a bit better than I thought it would.
It worked fine with this game because there's a little bit of that element of surprise in this game where it's like, well, if I already knew what cards you have on your hand, which I wouldn't have necessarily if we were just playing the game, it does mean that it can inform your strategy a little bit. But because the spirit of playing the game is about demonstrating it, you kind of try and do that whole suspend how much you know and just try and
maybe
imagine
play out your strategy more without shifting it.
Yeah.
So we're going to continue to do run-throughs for Rahdo on his channel, which is really exciting and just
great
really
to be joining that team.
You're so great to be joining that team, and Richard has been super supportive of us from the beginning, and has really like helped us work through this. How do you actually play a game live?
It's a steep learning curve, actually.
Very steep,
so I'm excited to continue to practice, just like with everything. It's like the more you practice, then the more second nature it becomes. And so I'm excited for that. And I think to the point where then I think we'll start playing and I won't be able to just control myself. I'll be talking through the entire turn. It'll be very annoying.
Oh no.
Apologies in advance for anyone who plays with me in the future.
But at least I feel like if you weren't aware of that, go and check it out, because a lot of people do ask us, like, would you ever do playthroughs on ThinkerThemer? And it's just not something that's ever really fit in with the format of the types of videos that we've been doing. It's been so much just for us to like kind of keep up with back chat, small talk, and then the reviews which we very rarely get done these days, and we've got a huge backlog. So this is like a nice separate creative outlet where we can kind of try something new in a format that's been tried and tested by someone else. So that's really, really nice. Really enjoying that, which is cool. But we're keeping very busy.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, there's barely any time for anything.
We keep saying, it's busy because we were traveling. Oh, it's busy because we're going to get married. Oh, it's busy because it's like, so I keep waiting for the moment where there isn't an event or a thing. That, like at the moment, we've got friends' birthdays that are like big birthdays.
A lot of 40th this year and next year.
Milestone birthdays that are a big deal and a big event. So it's not just like, you just rock up to a party. It's like, well, no, there's a lot of preparation and things. So,
yes. I mean, it's a great problem to have.
It is a fantastic first world problem to have.
It's just also nice to be around people again, obviously, after being in lockdown for so long. So, just really appreciating life, but also recognizing that, being back in offices, back to client meetings is a lot of like in-person things going on, and then fitting the content creation around that has been like super challenging.
It's an adjustment. How do we make it work?
We make it work because we love it.
We really do.
So we also had some things in our mailbox.
We did. Well, this is,
Well, okay, let's start with this one. You may have noticed our beautiful mugs that say Mrs. and Mrs. on them. We went to our postbox, and much to our surprise, usually there's some games there, and that's not so much of a surprise. But there was one box, and we were like, what is this? And we had a little congratulations postcard here that says, Amy and Maggie sending you lots of love as you celebrate your special day. Congratulations from Shelby and Kaylee, who are two of the Joey fam. And they sent us the most gorgeous hamper of things, so including these mugs, but also the main part of it was this beautiful woolen blanket from the Tartan Blanket Co. that has, if you can you hold that?
I can, yes.
It has our initials embroidered on there. It says A&M, which is also how we sign off like our emails and things. So it's just so special. And I was actually freezing when we started recording.
True story.
It's actually perfect. And it's so lovely. And there was like a candle in there and some other bits and pieces, and very, very generous.
A couple of pampering items, which is quite nice. It's so good.
So beautiful.
Thank you so very much for that.
Thank you so much. Super generous gift. And
far too generous.
And we're very excited to be married. And that was a really thoughtful surprise. So thank you both.
Yes.
And we also had some postcards.
We did, yes.
Yeah.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah.
All right. So I've got two from Hannah from Germany. So the first one is from, I think this would be the first one, yes, so from Marburg. So, dear Amy and Maggie, now I'm finally back in my hometown to send you another postcard. Marburg is a nice small town in central Germany with a castle and a famous and very old church. Hope you're doing very well.
That sounds like the second one, because it says another postcard.
Yeah, but then this one, oh yeah, I guess so, because this one is actually from, and again, I don't know how to pronounce it, Göttingen. So when you asked for postcards, I couldn't decide where to send them from. So now I'm sending my second postcard. See, now this is the second postcard. My second postcard, since I just visited Göttingen, where I lived until last year. The girl in the postcard is called Gansen Liesel. I am butchering all of this, I'm so sorry. And is very famous. It is a tradition that after you defend your doctoral thesis, you have to climb the fountain, kiss her, and bring her flowers. So that's the statue there with the flowers there. Obviously, a lot of people defending their thesis. And thank you so much. That is so lovely. And I love the backstory of that as well.
I think the ordering issue is that Hannah's, I think, written to us before.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Hannah, and for always being in the comments as well. It's
beautiful,
always a pleasure to chat.
Beautiful postcards
Beautiful
as well.
postcards. Yeah. We're going to have to make some more room on our postcard wall. And maybe move them around and feature some new cards that are coming through, because I have another one that says, "Hi, Amy and Maggie. Greetings from Haverford College, which is a small liberal arts school outside of Philadelphia. Lovely. And I can see this building, the Founders Hall, outside my dorm window."
That's so cool.
So this is from Matthew, and Matthew says they are a Gen Zer, which is, I wonder what the average age of a viewer of ThinkerThemer is. I think in the board gaming hobby, it actually over-indexes a little older than gaming in general. Probably people in their 30s and 40s, I would say, is probably like the average range when people start to really get into board games. So I think Matthew is probably on the younger end of that scale. But Matthew writes, "The work you've done uplifting underrepresented voices in the hobby is remarkable and inspiring, to the point where I've begun turning the minority history I learned in class into game prototypes.
Amazing.
It's super rewarding, just as I imagine content creation is for both of you. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Small talk makes it the best study breaks ever." It is, well, at least it's a good long study break. You get a whole hour.
Yes, it's good. You need to rest the mind in between.
Absolutely. Yes. And then also writes, "P.S. It's a shame you're not into co-ops, because Spirit Island is my favorite Euro, hands down."
We have played it and we enjoyed it, but it was still, the cooperating is not for us.
No.
Interestingly, we've even found that sometimes, even when we have kind of tried a co-op, and if it's if we're a group of competitive players, it still kind of turns a little bit competitive, which is sort of weird. Kind of going, are you helping enough? I feel like I'm doing the most help, and I don't know if this is something that happens in co-op in general. Like, you hear of people like the alpha players.
Very competitive.
We have a very competitive
who are used to playing very competitive games.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Matthew, for your kind words and for sending that. That is wonderful. Can't wait to put up on the wall.
Yeah.
So as usual, we'll now talk about some IAQs, or some infrequently asked questions. You only really have to ask us once, and we will answer it.
That's correct. That is how it works. Yes.
So let me find these again. If we haven't answered your question, please ask it again. Sometimes we do miss them. It's really helpful if you do have something to ask us to please put the acronym IAQ in the comment, because then I can search for them and find them. But we do have a few here. So Alex and Tom mentioned in the comments that they were at a game day here in Melbourne, and you and I were very busy doing a teach. And they said that they wanted to come to say hi, but they didn't. So that's unfortunate. And I did say to Alex and Tom that next time we're at a Melbourne game day that we will sit down and have a game together. But they also have a question. So with all of the Kickstarter purchases that we make, do we ever plan to sell the ones we don't enjoy as much? And do we find the selling process a bit tedious?
Oh, great question. The answer would be yes. We always have the intention of selling and moving on anything that we're not playing. It doesn't happen as frequently as it should, probably. And that's more just a matter of we never seem to find the time to go through it. But we will.
I think that at the moment, we're actually getting everything out of cupboards. We went through lockdown and we just kept buying and buying and buying and buying. And we also had so many Kickstarters come through that we just started like playing them and then putting them in cupboards, and we kind of lost track of what does our collection actually look like. And we're just not playing them because they're just everywhere in the house. And you open a cupboard and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot I had that game.
Yeah.
And so we are in the process of sorting through all of that, which means that, yes, there's absolutely a pile of games that we need to cull.
Yeah.
And on the process side of things, yes, I do find selling games quite tedious.
I find it really stressful. So Amy is usually the one that does all the coordinating and the price kind of questions back and forth and all of that. And then there might be a scenario where, Amy won't be home. And so it'd be like, oh, if you're going to be there, can you like do the swap? I'm like, I hate doing the swap because it's like, oh yeah, it's going to be this amount. It's like, it just brings me so much anxiety because I don't know. I don't even know why. It's like, it's that unexpected. You don't know who you're going to encounter, and you don't know if, they're going to try and like maybe get a discount at the last minute and try and like negotiate at it. And so I find that very stressful.
I have to say though, I don't think we've ever had an experience like that with board gaming. The community tends to be really wonderful.
Very true.
Very like, there's kind of like a quite a strong trust element between gamers selling each other games that it's going to be in a good condition.
Yeah.
That piece, it's like very rare that you would buy something and that pieces are missing or it's damaged and they haven't mentioned it, because we all take so much pride in the quality of like how well we look after our games.
So far my anxieties are very much unfounded and they have not been...
No one's been haggling with you at the doorstep?
No one's sort of tried to, do something dodgy or anything like that, or just like grab the game and run away with it or anything like that. So
we do hoard boxes. So we get
the boxes that they come in, you mean?
Yeah, because we know that we're going to do culling, and Sendle makes it, well, this is not an ad for Sendle, but Sendle makes it really easy because they come and pick up the games from you, or you can drop them off at like a local
servo,
the petrol station. You can drop them off. So that makes it really easy to kind of send games around Australia and move them on and get them into homes that where people are going to appreciate them and enjoy them. And I think that's the main motivator for me at the moment. It's just games that we're just not getting off the shelf because we have another game that's similar that we prefer more. We need to like move those games on. So
tough decisions.
They also ask, do we sometimes not sell something in case we regret it later?
I don't think. Yeah, I can see you nodding in your head. I feel like if I see it, if I'm unsure about it, I'll just keep it for now, and then just we've been lucky that we haven't been in a position where we've had to force ourselves to get rid of something, like for example because we've had to move or anything like that, where you go, we just don't have the space. We don't have the space, but we kind of just have the...
I mean, there's always more floor
stacks.
Space.
Yeah, exactly. The stacks of, just walk around them like an obstacle course. So, so I think so far it hasn't been an issue, because it's like, well, if I'm unsure about it, I'll just keep it for now.
For me, I think it's when I have something that is like a Kickstarter exclusive.
Yeah, the collector thing just
because it's like, I actually really like these components, and if I sell it and then I was to get it again, it would have just the retail components and that.
Yeah.
But then if I'm not playing it, I mean, there's no point having it to begin with. So.
Well, no, but then there's a collector element. So it's like, even if you're not playing it and you've got you're keeping it because of a collectible ability, or
there's not many games like that in our collection though. Like one example I can think of is probably Oath, actually. So if you watched our Oath review, at the end of it we kind of said we've played this out, we don't want to play it anymore. It was a great experience, unlike anything we've ever played before. Not for us. We kind of were just like, this was brilliant, but also it's not going to get a lot of time at our table. But we have the fully decked out, beautiful Kickstarter edition with all of everything, and I just appreciate the design so much that it has Pride in place kind of on the
I agree.
On the shelf.
I think I'll never, I can't see myself playing that again. Definitely not like, oh, let's get this off the shelf. But I actually really love the box. Like, I love looking at it. So it's like, just from having a piece of art.
And a game that
in your
challenges you in a different way. I don't know. It's like, I like reflecting on that, especially because I'm so mechanics driven. When I look at the collection and I see things, it reminds me of like the interesting thing that game brought to the table that I hadn't experienced before. So anyway, great questions. Thank you, Alex and Tom. Hope to see you at the next Board Game Barbecue game day here in Melbourne. which is coming up actually. So if you are based in Melbourne, I'm not sure if they still have tickets left, but it's a great in-person gaming day, and we really enjoy getting along to those when we can.
Yeah.
The next question is from String808. What game would you love to see a ThinkerThemer promo card for? Ooh. And what kind of power benefit would you want it to grant the player?
That's a great question. Very tricky on the spot for me to answer. What game? I can't even think of. Oh my goodness. Well, the only one that I have in my mind at the moment is Sleeping Gods, because we just covered the new standalone sequel. And I'm like, that would be pretty cool to have, but I don't even know what would be the ability. Maybe one of them would be, obviously it would be maybe the two of us in some way.
Maybe I don't like the idea of that, because then I have to fight things.
Well, maybe we're not a playable character. Maybe we're just like an NPC, a non-playable character. Maybe just part of the story. Like, you kind of land, like you arrive at one of the little islands and we just happen to be the people that live there, and we're doing some random
It's like, hello, would you like a cuppa? Come and sit down.
Yeah, a cuppa and so you can come and play a board game with us or something. I don't know what we would be able to help with in terms of helping you advance the story forward. But and I think it's just because it's a world that I just really love.
See, I thought you were going to say Stardew Valley, because those cards are really cute in the way that you get hearts from the characters. Is that what you do?
The friendship.
The friendships that you build with the characters, that's really cute.
But it's like that's such a perfect world as is. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if there'd be adding characters and stuff. I don't know if this is actually
going to happen. So
it's definitely not going to happen. But I wouldn't put it in Stardew Valley, because I think I'm actually too protective of Stardew Valley. I don't want it to change in terms of I'm gonna stick with my Sleeping Gods, and we're like non-playable character. We're like a storyline that you come across. Yeah.
For me, I don't know. I was just featured in a promo card.
You were,
which was amazing. It wasn't a promo card. It was actually part of the game, which is incredible. In Legacy, so the Amelia card. And what's interesting is that it's like the bashful kind of thing. The action that it enacts is that you have to give away your benefit to another player, which ironically is just something that I would hate to do in a game. But
then your expression matches how you would be feeling if you had to do that. You don't look super happy or thrilled about it. So that matches.
And I was so excited about that game. I still haven't played it yet. I'm hoping to get it to the table this week. But I was so excited about it that it was such an added bonus to see that in there. Yeah. But in terms of what other game I'd like a promo card for, I'm not sure.
I think because we also don't really we don't have any games that we love that are the types of games that have expanding, for example, like Marvel Champions or things that are heroes where you're like constantly adding new characters potentially. We don't tend to play those sorts of games.
Yeah, but it's not just that. I think it's because I don't think thematically, that all I can think about is what I want the action to be, and not like what world I want to live in.
What would you want the action to be?
I think the action would have to be some kind of take that action. It would have to be some kind of but not crippling, but just something that you can use in your strategy to maybe slow someone down or something.
Right.
I mean, I think that's what people would associate a card that has my face on it with.
Something slightly mischievous kind of thing.
Slightly mischievous, or something secret. I love a secret.
You do love a secret. Yes, that's true.
A secret objective or something that you could spring on people.
Yeah, it would be me
with extra points.
It would be whatever is representing my character trying to give you a heads up about something, and then Amy's character getting very upset about that's a secret. You're not meant to tell anyone about that.
But thank you for that question.
Yeah.
James, who actually goes by Jim, what's our favorite musical we've ever seen live and or movie musical? For Jim, it's Hamilton.
Yeah, you got into Hamilton.
I really did. I've never seen it live. I would love to. It's actually in Melbourne at the moment. But because the tickets went on sale when we were in lockdown, I was so close to buying tickets, but also in that phase of quite feeling not very positive about things.
We've had other, like we got tickets for another musical. Was it the Alanis Morissette one? And it had to be like they had to postpone because there were issues.
The cast
with,
kept
like,
getting
sick.
sick.
So it's been a very tumultuous time.
It has
been able to plan.
So I've only seen Hamilton on the Disney Disney version where they recorded it live, which was absolutely amazing, and I do love the soundtrack. But in terms of favorite musical we've seen live, I can't go without mentioning Wicked, because I've seen it 6 or 7 times, I think, now live, and I just adored it for when it was in its peak. Now I'm kind of like, I'll probably see something else instead of seeing it again, but I did like really enjoy that musical. And one of my most recent favorites is Muriel's Wedding, the musical.
Was pretty, that's pretty excellent.
Which is a very Australian-centric story.
And I imagine it's probably going to be adapted if it goes outside, which then would lose some of those Australian kind of inside jokes or like the cultural kind of comments and that sort of stuff.
So it is very Aussie in its humor. But Muriel's Wedding, the movie, if you haven't seen it, has ABBA music all integrated throughout it, because Muriel in the movie is a huge fan of ABBA, and so the stage production obviously has a lot of ABBA music all through it, and there's also a lot of it's Kate Miller-Heidke, I think, wrote the soundtrack for it, which is just
the book.
The music is phenomenal. So so great. But it never made it out of Australia yet.
Oh, it hasn't made it out of Australia?
No, I don't think so. What about you?
Well, my favorite, and this goes back to my days living in New York, was Reefer Madness, which was kind of based on the cult, what became a cult classic kind of propaganda film, and they kind of made this hilarious musical, kind of poking fun at that whole, like, when marijuana sort of first came into the scene, and all the like scare campaigns around this is gonna turn people into like all sorts of different, into all sorts of stuff. And so the musical itself was so, like, the lyrics were so clever, not the most politically correct of all things, particularly probably like now, but the cast, like Kirsten Bell was playing one of the leads, and she was just so good. Like, and that was before any of most of like the success that obviously she's had in her career. So that was like earlier days, and it was just I could not take my eyes off of her. And every time she would open her mouth, like the entire theater would just be roaring with laughter. It's just like her comedic timing, and so like that kind of held up very, and it was one of those musicals that I just, as a theater student back then, like I would just go like every day, essentially, like every day I would go in and again and again and again. So that would probably be mine.
A movie musical. We recently watched Tick Tick Boom.
Oh yes,
which was
that was very
fantastic.
good.
And it was just late at one night, and we were like, we'll just watch the first 10 minutes or so while we eat dinner. And then we watched the whole thing. We're both crying.
It was to the screen.
It was really amazing. I can't think of any other movie musicals that come to mind immediately. That I would watch over and over.
We watched Encanto, and like did. Surface Pressure, I think is the name of the song. That's so good. Like that's great songs
in that movie. Also, what's an album you enjoy listening to from front to back? No skipping. You're going to love this. Jim's list had a lot of Tay Tay on it.
Oh yeah.
So 1989.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's just like song after song after song of
and
just
folklore
gold. Yeah. What would be mine? Oh, I think I'd probably go adjacent, kind of like Camila Cabello's first album, like the debut album. I loved that album so much. And then if we go more old school, I don't know, like probably, what would you be picking? Like I'm thinking even like 90s stuff. Like that was the golden era of, you get a CD and you just listen to it over and over, and you listen to every song. Like I'm thinking like Aqua, like even the most obscure songs in that album, like I would know like every lyric.
Music Box, 100%.
Yeah.
But I could, or anything by Mariah Carey, I could listen to from start to finish with no skipping, and just really enjoy that whole journey. But also I am not very maybe this goes with not being a themer, I don't listen to lyrics very much. And so I don't get too distracted by songs that are less familiar. Like I can work and have a whole album going and just like it fades into the background of my mind. It helps me actually focus on my work, whereas you get very distracted.
Cannot, because my mind gets pulled into the lyrics to the point where then, like I get the sort of that earworm where for the next couple of days, my mind, I even find it hard to concentrate because the lyrics will just pop back in and so I have to be in a very specific headspace to be listening to music. And it's like, it's the music season. And then it's like music nonstop. And then sometimes it's just like, I can't have any music if I'm trying to concentrate on other things. Yeah. Can be instrumental.
I did go back and listen to the Spice Girls album the other day, and I went back to listen to one song, and then you listen to the next one, you're like, oh, this one was also so good. And then you listen to the next one, you're like, oh, they had so many hits.
Yeah.
But I have to say, after going through like their like best hits, I was like, okay, I'm done now. Yeah. I can leave that world again
kind
for
of
a little
reach
bit.
your
Spice
saturation
world.
point. Yeah.
Anyway, that's probably all the time we have for IAQs, but please keep sending them through, and thank you so much to everyone who sends us questions to answer. But now we should talk about some games.
Let's talk about some games. So the first game, I'm going to put this out of the way. First game is One Deck Dungeon. Where did this game come from, Amy?
Oh, I bought it at Dice Tower West at the flea market.
One of a gajillion games that got picked up.
It was $5.
That's a great price. And it's something that I've always been a little bit curious about. I'm like, not into dungeon crawling or dungeon exploring, but this whole concept of like, can you really have a one deck dungeon and have an immersive sort of gaming experience with one deck of cards? And the answer is yes. I actually really, really enjoy this. So in One Deck Dungeon, as the name suggests, you are going to be picking one of, I believe it's 5 different heroes. So you have all these different possible heroes to pick from. They're all asymmetric. They all have kind of slightly different abilities that you can use and also different skills in terms of their stats. So their strength or their speed or even their health. So, and then you're going to be using that hero to work your way through or explore this dungeon, which is just a full deck of cards that they're going to be turning into doors. So as you're walking your way through, you've got doors, and then you're kind of opening door number 1 and see what's there and decide, it's a monster that I'd have to combat. Maybe I'll leave that one there for now and I'll go and explore something else, or go, I'm going to confront it. There's monsters, there's traps as well. And so as you're working your way through it, your stats they are translated into the types of dice that you can roll, and obviously, and with the different things that you're going to be battling. So the foe or the trap that you're trying to overcome, they will have different blocks or squares on them that decide for example, what strength or what speed would you need to have depending on the color. And so if the square is just the size of 1 die, then it means that you have to be able to hit that level with a single die. So for example, if it's a 5 and it's blue, it needs to be a blue die that's level 5 or higher. But if it's a longer shape, so like a rectangle, I should say, and it's like at 10 or sometimes even 20 or higher, then you can have you can use as many dice as you like, but they usually also have to be a certain color. So it's so interesting because as you're going through it, as you defeat either, overcome traps or defeat monsters along the way, those cards now become something that you can equip on your hero. So you can either equip them for skill, so it means that you're going to be able to now use additional strength die or additional, whatever die, or you can equip them as an item, or you can equip them as a skill that then kind of goes underneath, and then they'll give you abilities where then you can allocate, for example, a lower value die that you wouldn't be able to use in a combat later on, but then that allows you to roll 2 extra die of a different color. So it kind of opens up your ways of tackling different challenges. Or you can, if you don't want to use either of those 2, you can use them for experience points, which then allow you to go through these different levels of experience, which then in turn allow you ability to equip more items or have more skills. And then there's also this whole other potions side where you can get, you know, different potions and have, again, kind of unique abilities to help you battle through things. So you're going to be working your way through usually 3 different levels of the dungeon as you're going through, and as you're progressing, things get a little bit trickier or tougher, and then at the end you're going to be battling the boss of that. Usually it's, you know, you've got all these different kind of monster bosses that you're going to be battling. So you can either just do them. It's really either a solo or a 2-player. If you play a 2-player, it's the same game as the solo. All you're doing is you're using the other side of the heroes, and you're splitting the dice that you would be using between the 2 players. So it's sort of making it, and you're cooperative, like you're doing it in a cooperative way, which is why Amy would have nil interest in helping with that. But I was so impressed with how much game and the gaming experience of it, how much you could fit in such a tiny little box. Not only that, you can also then have this campaign where you walk your way through all the different monsters, all the different kind of scenarios, and they have different difficulties as well. So you can kind of gauge, okay, well, I'll start with the easier ones, build up my character, because that's the other thing. Every time then you're leveling up, you're blocking away different or unlocking new abilities that make your character stronger over different games and plays. So there's just so much game in this tiny little box that I think I really, really enjoyed this, even though the theme of, you know, fantasy and dungeons is not something that I'm usually into. I actually didn't mind. I was actually really enjoying myself with that. If it were any other theme, I think you probably wouldn't see me for like a year and a half, because I would just be playing this non-stop. So still, even though it's fantasy.
So if it was one deck farm.
Yeah, if it was like a fun, like, I don't even know what other theme you could use for this, because there's gonna be some way of adapting it. Obviously, if you love fantasy, if you love, you know, dungeon crawling and all that sort of stuff, like this is excellent.
Well, yeah, so, I'd heard that the system was great, and so when I saw it,
clever.
When I saw it, I thought, well, it would be a disservice not to buy this.
Just like in this progress of, you know, as you're going through, even just in the one campaign, or not even the one, like just in the one game, as your character's leveling up, you're getting more and more dice. So you end up kind of, you know, you've got your dice tree, and I'm like, yes, and it's just so much when you just start with, like, you know, 4 or 5 dice. That momentum, I really, really enjoy that. So that's one deck dungeon.
The next game is another small box game called Sherlock 13, which is a bit of an older game that we came across at Gamma. No, it was Dice Tower West.
Yeah, it was Dice Tower West. Yeah.
And it's an interesting little game because it's a very small box, as you can see, deduction experience, and you have the screens that you're going to put up between the players, and in this game you're playing as investigators of I guess like a whodunit. Interestingly, Sherlock is one of the suspects.
Yes, it could be the actual actual murder. I think it's because it's based on there's been a murder, and then you have to decide who done it.
And so you're trying to investigate, but the way that you're doing that is through trying to deduce who has which symbols and therefore the cards in their hands that rule out certain suspects. So in this game, you're going to be dealing out all of the suspects to all of the players in the game. In a 2-player game, you have to follow a slight variant of that, where it's not just the person who did it that's kept out of the deck, but also 2 others that can be investigated if you choose. But for the most part in this game, what you're going to be doing is asking those around the table what kind of the number of symbols that they have in their hand, or the symbols that they have in their hand, or the number of symbols that they have in their hand. And that's going to allow you to mark them off on a little sheet where you can work out, well, I've got this many of this symbol in my hand, and Maggie's got this many. That means that all of the total number of that symbol are covered between us, which means that the card that's out of the deck must not have that symbol, if that makes sense.
And deduction.
But I just explained how to deduce things. Yes. But it's a fairly quick paced game. But what was really interesting about this game is when we first started playing it, sorry to kick you.
That's all right.
When we first started playing it, I was like, well, this seems easy. Like, we can work this out.
Overly confident, going, this seems so simple. We're gonna, let's do this.
And after so many games, we were both like, I know who it is. I know who it is. And we both,
wrong,
and they're like, okay, instead of one of us guessing, let's both say it at the same time. And it'll be two completely different people and often wrong.
It took us a while to crack the deduction, crossing out thing.
And we've played a lot of deduction games before, and I think I'm fairly good at them, but this one, I just could not work out the logic of it.
Yeah.
And things kept
we did eventually.
We did eventually. It was the way I was note-taking, I think, that I was trying to wrap my head around keeping track of things.
Yeah, I think by far in this one, if you're trying to use numbers and kind of go, there's 3 of these or there's 4 of these, that's way more difficult because then you're having to kind of cancel things out than just doing, the stick, if you're in a deserted island and you're doing 1 day, 2 days, 3, 4 day, and then 5 to do all the way across. That was by far the easiest way of tracking things here, because then you were.
It was more the part where in the 2-player experience, your opponent may swap out a card from their hand for one on the table, and then I'm like, and then you ask them again about symbols, and now she doesn't have that many symbols, and it just got a bit confusing. But it's an interesting experience. It's definitely pure deduction, so if you don't like that genre of games, you're not going to enjoy this one.
It felt to me like Clue or Cluedo with cards instead of having a full board game.
Kind of, but you're only really guessing one thing.
Yeah, and very, very simplified version.
And there is very little theme in it, almost zero theme in this. So when we're struggling to talk about, or I was struggling to talk about what you're actually doing in this game, for the most part, you're just marking symbols off a sheet. Yeah. So very, very abstract. Yeah. But if you're looking for a very small box, portable, very deduction experience, Sherlock 13, I believe there's more in this series, but this is the first one that we've checked out.
It's probably not one that's going to be for me, I think, because of because when we're looking at, deduction not being one of the things that I'm super into in general, but then when we are doing deduction, there's so many different options that we have, and I think we probably tend to go for
bigger experiences.
An awkward guess or scandal, or even now, which are much bigger.
Or Search for Planet X is a fantastic one as well.
That's
so
one.
Maybe those bigger experiences are more for us, but that's Sherlock 13.
Yeah.
And the next game is one that came in from Kickstarter.
Aldabas.
Yes. Which is about the doors of Cartagena.
Yeah, Cartagena in Colombia. Yeah. So in this game, the theme is you are a city planner, I guess, and you're trying to, in Cartagena, I can't remember what the time period was of this, but the door adornments, so the adornments on the door knock, they would signify what profession the people living in there had. So for example, if you're a fisherman, it would have something kind of fish related or sea related. Same if you are, a soldier, or if you're a noble, and so that's what this game is sort of from a theme point of view, looking at exploring or recreating. So you're going to be rewarded, I guess, for having the best city planning in terms of, where all your people are going to be, all the doors are going to be, based on the synergies of the professions. So again, there's going to be, depending on whether, the nobles and the soldiers can have affinities. So the soldiers want to, they're there to kind of help protect or serve the nobles. So if you're kind of going for soldiers, then you want to have
such a thematic explanation.
I'm trying to do the thematic link, but let's talk about, because the reality is that when you actually play it, it's fairly abstract, and a lot of it is they're kind of like symbols and
so you are developing a grid that is going to be a 3x4 grid.
That's your suburb. That's all your doors.
Yes, all your doors. And really this game is all about majorities. So you are trying to get as much influence as possible in each of the different suits, and by suits I mean the
professions.
The different professions. And you're only going to be able to get the scoring condition, the end game scoring condition, if you are first or second in influence of these different professions. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be playing cards out of your hand into your little tableau space in front of you. And the cards have actions that get activated. So, for example, a card might give you coins. And then you are going to be placing another card next to it, obviously, in the grid. But that card has to be a different color to your first place card if you're going to put it next to it, but also the cards need to be supported from the bottom up, so you can only build the grid in a certain way, and you're also just trying to balance the appearance of those, or the number of each different suit that you have, because what's really interesting and complex about this game is that the scoring conditions that relate to the different professions and not necessarily are something completely different. So
so it's not just about having the majority in one going, great, now I get to score that. It's like, oh, right, but the way that I score this. So for example,
completely different.
So for example, the soldiers. It's like, oh, I had the most soldiers, but then you go, yeah, but then the soldiers allow you to score points for every noble that you got to put on the, and so you might go, oh, I forgot to do the noble. So
so I've been working on getting so much influence, but it often is at the detriment of what the actual scoring condition is, which is really complex and really layered as a strategy, and it's quite confusing at first, because also the professions or suits are unrelated to the color of the door, which is part of the placement puzzle. So you can be a fisherman and have the 3 different colored doors, and so there's a lot to wrap your head around in terms of the strategy for this game when you first get started at it. But the more you play it, Maggie and I have played this quite a few times, it does get quite interesting, because you're constantly watching the other players to see who has the most influence in each of the professions, because obviously you want to have the most, so you get the most victory points for that scoring condition.
The opportunity to score.
But what's interesting is you also have a vault. So there's a vault that sits kind of in your neighborhood, where you can put coins away, and when you put coins away, they're going to be worth 2 victory points at the end, and if you don't, then coins in and of themselves are not worth victory points. But you can also hide or tuck cards away under your vault, and what that does is it obscures the amount of influence that you have in a particular suit, which means that you might have the majority and nobody knows it, and there's a lot of surprises that can happen at the end of the game, which I personally really enjoy that part of the game. It's just a slight little twist that means that your strategy is a little bit obscured by the information that you don't have, the hidden information, and so you've got to kind of hedge your bets, and sometimes you might be like, oh, at the moment I can see that I'm one ahead of Maggie, but what if she's got something secret?
What if they've been tucking hidden influence away? But even that, like, so you said, you don't really get points for just the coins at the end unless you have the majority in the noble. So the nobles are about kind of scoring your coins. So that's one of those things where it's like, I've had so many games where it's like, oh yeah, I got the majority in the fisherman. It's like, oh, the fisherman score of influence in your hand. It's like, I have no cards in my hand. So it's like, I ended up getting, so it's again, like having to think 2 or 3 layers, or 2 or 3 steps away or ahead, which is tricky. On top of, the adjacencies, as you were kind of mentioning, you're not allowed to put the same color door adjacent to one another. But then the other cool thing about it is, as you're putting those doors and you're activating the ability on that card, it also activates whatever it's adjacent to. So you can have a little bit of like a mini engine kind of going, which I really dislike when Amy has a steal coins engine, and that has happened where it's like, there's a card here that steals coins, so she steals coins, and there's a card over here that steals coins, so she steals coins, and then she puts another new card that gives her coins or something, and then steals again from me. Like, it's like, oh my, so you can get that. Get some of those repeated, or bonuses from those repeated actions.
I will say that Maggie was doing her fair share of stealing, so there's that. And this is a Kickstarter edition, so it did come with some nice wooden coins,
I really like
which
those.
was super lovely, as well as a bit of an expansion pack with new professions in it as well. This is a game that I am on the fence about keeping in our collection. On the one hand, I feel like it's quite interesting and very thinky.
But it's layers.
But on the other hand, it is one of those games that I'll struggle to find an occasion for, because it's a little too complex to get out for a new gamer. And if it was just Maggie and I, we'd probably pull out something that's a deeper experience overall. So I'm not sure.
I feel like I think this is the kind of game that, again, it's going to reward playing it multiple times. So you wrap your head around what are those scoring abilities for the different professions. So I think if you have either for a 2 or 3 player, I would say that's probably the sweet spot. 2 or 3 players that really love abstract games that would be keen on like learning that.
I'd say it's better at 3. Yeah, because of the majorities, it makes it more interesting.
But that's the other thing. It's very abstract. So that's probably what kind of doesn't excite me as much about it. I should also say I played it solo. The solo is it's pretty good. It's fairly straightforward in that you've got a rival there that all they're really doing is they've got their own. Well, they're helping refresh the market because you've got the kind of like a market of cards where you can get cards as well from. But then they're also going to be mostly, even though they don't really have a score at the end, they're going to be competing for those majorities of the different professions. And so ultimately it's just like a better your own score, improve, get your best own score. And I think from the times that I played, I think my score was, I was a mediocre leader of the city of Cartagena. So my apologies for my mediocre leadership. But yeah, I never managed to be like that legendary leader that like everyone just like really, applauded, going, they made the city so much better. No, I just sort of, they're just like, well, thank goodness that's over. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. So yeah, yeah. it's an interesting sort of solo experience. Again, if you like the sort of abstract thinking side of it.
So that is Aldabas, Doors of Cartagena.
All right.
The next game is a game called Caper Europe, which is a 2-player only game.
Yes.
Very interesting because it is based on the old game called Caper, which we had never played.
No.
And this was the new Kickstarter that brought in this European theme. And in this game, there are actually different city packs that you can play with that represent different cities in Europe. So you can play with the London pack or the Rome pack.
Barcelona.
But the base game for Caper Europe stays the same essentially. You're just adding in more flavor or more variation in terms of the actions of the cards.
Yeah.
But the way that this game works generally is that there are 3 locations on the board, and you are trying to send out different teams who are going
art thieves
who are going out on these capers, and you're trying to best your opponent. I can't do it thematically.
You're sending, yeah. All right. So I'll try and do the thematic thing. You're trying to ultimately end up with the best possible point loot of it.
Points loot. That's not very thematic.
Well, because it's sort of like I guess it would probably be representing maybe like your thief prestige of because you're essentially managing a team of thieves that are going to all these different locations and either directly stealing art, or then you're equipping different equipment that allows you to have I don't even know, like there's a lot of very abstract elements of like there's a kind of push and pull. I'm trying to think of like the push and pull element. I guess that's probably like maybe presence or influence, because it's got the little the sort of incognito shades thing. So sleuthing.
I'm just going to go back into mechanics.
Yeah.
So there are 3 locations, and you're basically having a tug of war game in these 3 locations where you're moving this influence tracker towards you, and your opponent's going to be trying to bring it towards them. The further along you get on that influence tracker, you're going to get some bonus victory points. But the most important part is that each of the locations have an end game scoring condition, and that is only activated if you have the most influence in that area. And so that's what you're competing over, the ability to score at the end of the game for whatever those locations allow you to score. There are other ways to score in the game, such as thieving some different types of loot.
Yeah. Like set collection.
Yeah, set collection. Getting differentiated types of loot is also going to get you a lot of points in this game. But the most fascinating thing about this game is it really is a game about drafting. The central mechanic is drafting. And what you're going to be doing is on each round, you're either going to be drafting thieves who can go out to these different locations, or you're going to be drafting equipment which can be attached to the thieves that you already have in the locations to then give you different abilities, other ways to score, and in some cases to also cause a bit of pain to your opponent by removing equipment that they have attached to their thieves. Yeah. And so it's really interesting because you are passing those hands of cards backwards between each other, choosing a card to play and then handing the deck of cards back. And of course, if you've played any drafting games like that, that means that you can kind of see what's upcoming. You know what your opponent has the ability to use. And so you may want to just burn a card, even if you don't want to use it, so that your opponent can't use it and exchange it for a coin, or you may want to use it before they get the chance to, or you may want to take the card that you really want before they have a chance to do that to you.
You have that classic, please don't take it, please don't take it, please don't take it, when you're kind of waiting for that to come back.
And really you're just looking in each location, not only to get influence in that location, but also to then fulfill the end game scoring conditions that are either at that location or the ones that you've added to your thieves, which could be a combination of different colored cards that you want to have in that location, or it could be to have...
So that, like, sometimes it might be scoring for the number of thieves that you have at a location.
And coins that you've put away as well.
So it varies. So that also will vary depending on the city pack, the location pack that you decide to play with.
Yeah, and they scale it.
The difficulty as well changes. I think one of the things that I really loved about this was, one, the artwork. I really love the production quality of this is beautiful. Like, just from the box to the actual, cardboard itself. We do have, the coins were very, like, really nice as well. So with the coins, that's the other interesting thing. When you're playing the thieves, your different thieves will give you different level of coin, but then you're actually going to be needing the coin to buy the equipment. So you're going to be having these different, depending on the turn. One turn might be drafting thieves, one turn might be drafting the equipment, and so you kind of have to, like, get that money up to be able to get, like, good equipment the next time around. And so I found that really interesting in and of itself.
Yeah, because you've got to think
the balance, like having that balance between those.
You definitely have to plan ahead to make sure that you've got enough money to do what you need to do. And money is really difficult to come by, but also the money available to you is finite, to you and your opponent is finite. And once the pool of money runs out, you then start stealing from each other, which is a really interesting dynamic as well. I really enjoyed exploring this game and all of the different packs. I think that ultimately, will it stay in our collection? I'm not sure. I really enjoy it as a two-player experience.
I love the table presence of it. Like, I love the cards. I love the illustrations on them. I enjoy the play, but it's still more on the abstract side for me. So I think I can't see myself, like, I don't know how many times I'd be like, let's play this game.
I think it's because, and I think many people love this because it's not directly competitive. Like, it is competitive in that you're both drafting cards and you're trying to build up your side, but it's not mean, really. There's some cards that can,
but it's tense though, because there's a literal tug of war in 3 levels, and there are cards that allow you to burn or eliminate one of the equipment cards that the other person has, which then makes them go backwards on whatever benefit that card gave them. So there are some mean elements in it, but I agree, it doesn't feel like you're, like it's just mean and it's just, a head-to-head in that nasty sort of sense.
And I really enjoyed this game as well. I'm trying to pinpoint why, it doesn't rocket up to maybe my top 5 two-player games or anything, but I think that's mainly because there's a little bit of, for me, the drafting element, a bit of upkeep in that you're constantly handing things out, dealing new cards. It's a little bit, for me, it falls into a little bit of fiddliness. Like, there's a bit of just admin things that happen throughout. But I thought it was really clever. I haven't played, obviously, the original, but it is a super clever game. I can see why so many people do love and adore this game. And the artwork is fabulous. So that is Caper Europe.
Nice.
And the last game one for this episode is Explore and Draw, which is the roll and write version of the Isle of Cats.
Isle of Cats, one of the games that has gotten played the most because so many people that we play it with, it's like it's so easy to introduce to people and people just kind of immediately get it and they just kind of go, again, this is great, let's play it. So this is an even more accessible roll and write, flip and write
flip
version.
And write, So in this game, it works almost identically to the Isle of Cats game, if you're familiar with that. If you're not, you are trying to save cats from an island from some evil person, and to do so you have a boat that is going to be able to fit a certain number of cats within it. Those cats are polyomino tiles. In the original game, they are physical tiles that you're going to be placing down onto your mat. In this roll and write version, explore and draw, you're going to be drawing the polyomino tiles in the same way that you would place them in the original game. What's interesting about this particular version is there's going to be a grid of cards that is dealt out every round that you get to choose from, and everybody chooses simultaneously, and it doesn't matter if everybody picks the same thing, because what you're going to be doing is picking one of the columns, and you're going to be able to use all 3 of those cards. But where it gets interesting, and just like the original game, the tension is saving more cats versus getting some juicy goals or lesson cards, as they're called, which are the end game scoring conditions. In this game, you don't take the lesson. You actually have a list that you can, like a checklist.
Mark it off.
Yeah, so you can say, this is one of my goals that is active, and you're going to be able to get points at the end. But to do so, of course, you have to activate the column that card is in. And that comes at a cost of obviously having 1 less cat to place on your boat.
Yes.
Now, the map itself, the boat, you're trying to cover as much ground as possible, because you're going to get minus points for any rats that are showing on your boat. So there's a little rat icon
covered.
And also rooms that are not completely covered. So you really do want to cover as much as you can on your boat.
Maximize the space.
And on top of that, you're trying to get families of cats. So there are different colored cats that are available to draft and draw on your boat. This game comes with a set of colored textures, which means that you can actually draw them in the color that you're drafting. And what you're going to try and do is get groups of cats together adjacent in your puzzle as well, to get you a huge amount of victory points at the end, which is the same as the original game. So there's a few other things. One thing is that you get a number of, you can take 3 of these bonuses that break the rules of the game.
One time in the game ability,
across the course of each game. And each game is 7 rounds. So you're going to need to place out that grid of cards to choose from 7 times, and then the game is over. So this is a really faithful rendition of the original game. It is incredibly similar in that if you've played Isle of Cats, this will be so easy for you to pick up. Really interesting game. I really enjoyed drawing the pieces as well. The only thing I found challenging was the spatial awareness.
Same. I actually found, because obviously if you're playing the regular game, you just pick up that tile and then you just place
Turn it around. And...
Whereas this, you're like, oh, I'm so sorry, can I just borrow the card so that I can figure out how to draw this? So that can be a bit of a spatial challenge. And I can probably guarantee that I got a couple of them wrong when I drew them. It was like mirrors.
You do have to watch people.
That looks right, is it?
Like a few times I was like, can everyone just watch me draw this piece? Because I'm not sure if this is it turned around. So that's interesting. I enjoy the way that they have implemented the lesson cards and the things that are the same in the original game. Even the scoring is very similar to the original game. And one thing about the original game is that it's so mammoth, especially if you got the latest Kickstarter box, which I did. Whereas this is just this tiny little box that plays 1 to 6 players with the different boats. And
you can play it even remotely. So you can actually even play it, via a teleconference software of your choice, like a Zoom or a Skype or
like most
whatever.
roll and writes. It can be used by used like that. So the
actual space didn't take that much space for the main kind of display of cards as well. So that was pretty good. Like we were able to kind of play it on like a coffee table in terms of like having people around that, and that's where it displays. But then you are kind of holding your boat. Which are also different. Like they have different maps. So the boats are different.
Boats are different. I wish they were different on the reverse side of the boat. So I believe they're all the same on 2 sides, which makes me wonder why they are 2-sided. Likewise with the lesson.
The lesson card was the same. It's printed double-sided, but it's the same on both sides. So it sort of feels like it is like unusual. A strange choice.
And maybe it was just easier or cheaper to have it printed on both sides, and then it doesn't matter which way you turn it up, and that's easier. A couple of other things that I would have loved an eraser on those pens, or at least one eraser, because it doesn't come with one. And the other thing is that it takes a little while at first to get used to the pattern that you have to make with the cards, which is a combination of the cat cards and the lesson cards. And there's no reference point for
when
that.
You're laying it out.
When you're laying out the cards, and I wish they had put that somewhere on a reference card so that in your first few games, you could look at that and remember, oh, this is the pattern that I have to do each time, because I found I had to keep referring to the rule book, which was a little bit annoying. But otherwise, this is this is really great. If you love the original game, it's almost guaranteed that you'll love this because it's very similar. And it's just a great re-implementation of the game into a roll and write format.
Relaxing. Like we kind of played this on a very, very rainy, surprisingly rainy night as well. And we were like, this is actually really lovely because like it's raining outside and it's like so chill, so relaxed. And with people who we played that had never played. I don't think they'd even play the original.
No, they haven't.
And they're not really heavy gamers. So it was very easy for them to kind of pick it up and start playing.
I will say the interaction level is far lower as well, because in the original game, you're drafting cats that other people might want. You're also drafting cards that other people might want. Whereas in this one, everybody can use the cards together. So if you prefer lower interaction, just do your own thing, work on your own puzzle, then you might actually prefer Explore and Draw. But that is all of the 5 games for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Small Talk. We'll be back with some more run-throughs on Rahdo's channel, so keep an eye out for
later
that.
In the month,
a review on our channel this week, and of course back chat next week. But otherwise, have a great week ahead. Happy birthday, Maggie.
Oh, thank you.
And bye for now.
Bye.